Sir? Okay. Okay, this hearing of the House Environmental Committee will now come to order. Evan, would you take the roll?
Vitale,
Present?
Brown,
He's here.
Fleming,
Here.
Hohenstein,
Leave.
Isaacson,
Leave.
Kazim,
Leave.
Atten,
Leave.
Pielli,
Leave.
Rivera,
Leave.
Salisbury,
Leave.
Siegel,
Leave.
Steele,
Leave.
Takak,
Leave.
Webster.
Webster is here, I believe.
Yes, he left momentarily, but he was present.
Got it. Okay, let's do the Republican side.
Rader,
Here.
Bashline,
Leave.
Day,
Leave.
Flick,
Leave.
James, Kephart, Mahaffey,
Leave.
Pugh, Schaefer, Stenger,
Here.
Twardzik,
Here.
Wentling.
Leave.
Okay, Justin, will you lead us in the pledge today?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, today's hearing is a public hearing where we were going to examine the setback requirements relating to unconventional gas well infrastructure, well pads, compressor stations, so forth, from buildings, water supplies, and so forth. Under current law established by Act 13 of 2012, there is a 500-foot setback requirement for buildings and a 1,000-foot setback requirement from water extraction. You'll hear from testimony today that various problems are occurring with regard to people who live in the vicinity of this natural gas infrastructure, including noise, vibrations, air pollution, including volatile organic compounds, benzene, toluene, and so forth, and the various health benefits they have caused. In 2020, then Attorney General, now Governor Josh Shapiro, convened the 43rd grand jury, and it reported recommendations of 2,500 feet for buildings, 5,000 feet for vulnerable buildings, meaning schools, hospitals, and so forth. And in a couple of minutes, I will read some excerpts from that before we get started. There's also a petition out there by various environmental groups, including Earthworks and the Sierra Club, which require 3,281 feet setback for buildings and a mile setback from these vulnerable buildings, such as schools and hospitals. This petition is currently languishing in the Environmental Quality Board. I have introduced House Bill 1946, which builds on the good work of Danielle Friel-Otten with regard to her House Bill 170 of last term. This requires a 2,500-foot setback from buildings, a 5,000 setback from these vulnerable buildings, schools, hospitals, etc., 2,500-foot setback from water extraction wells, and a 750-foot setback from streams. The inaction of Pennsylvania on these setbacks has forced municipalities to act on their own. And we'll hear in our first panel from a commissioner and a resident of Cecil Township with regard to ordinance they have passed relating to increased setbacks. The hearing today, we have 6 presenters. Our first panel will include Cindy Fisher, who is a township supervisor in Cecil Township, who was instrumental with regard to the Cecil Township setback ordinance in Washington County. We will hear from resident Michelle Stonemark, who lives near a well pad and the problems that has caused. We will also hear from Lois Bauer Bjorkson from the Clean Air Council. The second panel will be Dr. Edward Gittier, I have yet to get that right, who is President, Physicians for Social Responsibility. Next, we will have Patrick Henderson from the Marcellus Shale Coalition, and finally, Melissa Ostroff from Earthworks. The ground rules will be, as usual, each speaker will get up to 8 minutes to present, followed by the entire testimony of each speaker will consist of 15 minutes, with the balance of their testimony being left for member questions, the balance of that 15-minute time period. When we have panels, as we do in the first time, that will simply be multiplied by 3. With that, before we begin, I would welcome any opening comments from our minority chair, Chair Rader.
I have none.
Okay, before we begin, I just want to read into the testimony recommendations from that grand jury report, that 43rd. I'm just going to read excerpts from their recommendations to expand the no-drill zones. There is one point that is impossible to deny. The closer people happen to live to a massive industrial drilling complex, the worse it is likely for them to be. The more chance of their drinking, cooking, and bathwater being contaminated, the more harmful emissions they will breathe into their lungs, the more truck traffic and machinery they will have to hear at all hours of the night, the more the effects on their health, safety, and welfare of their family and children. They continue. There has to be a statewide minimum setback, and the current minimum 500 feet just isn't enough. The no-drill zone should be at least 2,500 feet. We do not believe such a modest buffer zone is too much to ask when it comes to people's health and homes. They continue. We were astonished to learn that the drilling setback is no different even when it comes to sensitive sites like a hospital or an elementary school playground. We think the no-drill zone for schools and hospitals should be even bigger, 5,000 feet. We just want to give it some separation from the places we eat and sleep, treat the sick, and educate our children. Okay, with that, let's start with our first panel. I see, Lois, you are here. Come on up to the table, and we will get started. Okay. So we want 10, 12. I don't know. I was just sort of thinking about the order of testimony. I was thinking Cindy, Michelle, Lois, if that works for you guys. Okay, then Cindy, are you out there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Why don't you start when you're ready to go?
First, I want to thank you for having me today. I'll just get started. My name is Cindy Fisher, and I'm a current Cecil Township Supervisor. I've been a Cecil Township Supervisor for the past 12 years. I was reelected in November 2025 for my third 6-year term. Dealing with oil and gas development has dominated a large portion of my time as a supervisor for the past 12 years. Washington County, where Cecil Township is located, is the epicenter of oil and gas development. The first Marcellus Shale well was drilled in Washington County in 2004. The first well pad in Cecil Township was the Troyer pad drilled in 2009. While oil and gas development is often spoken of in a positive light, it comes with definite downsides, specifically for those of us who live in close proximity to pads, compressor stations, processing plants, and such. From the beginning, Cecil Township has experienced issues with oil and gas development. In early 2014, Cecil Township dealt with a leaking impoundment that ultimately resulted in the company that owned it being assessed the largest DEP fine in history, $4.15 million. The DEP also required the closure and remediation of that impoundment. Township supervisors are often the first people that residents reach out to if there are issues. They reach out to us with road complaints, truck traffic complaints, air quality issues, water issues, noise complaints, and many more. I have stood in residents' homes while they cried because they couldn't take the vibration, noise, or smells anymore. Oil and gas development is a 24/7 operation and often keeps those in close proximity up all night long. I have had to learn to read DEP permits, scientific studies, maps, engineering documents, just to be able to help our residents. In 2019 and 2020, Cecil experienced what I call a next generation well pad. These well pads are bigger, louder, more invasive, and more detrimental to the surrounding neighbors than any other oil and gas development we experienced before it. Often when testifying at conditional use hearings before the township, representatives from oil and gas companies describe these operations as temporary. This is inaccurate. The well pad I described earlier that started in 2019 is still in an active drilling stage in 2025. They have drilled 9 wells on this pad and have already notified the township they intend to come back for 5 more wells next year. Nearly 6 years of drilling with many more to come is not temporary. Cecil Township has 5 well pads in the township with more than 30 wells on them. With these wells come issues, as I said earlier, noise, truck traffic, vibrations, air quality issues, water contamination, just to name a few. The township is often ill-equipped to deal with the complaints we get, and unfortunately the DEP is not a reliable level of protection for our residents. We often cannot trust the studies, documents, and information provided to us by the oil and gas companies. In 2024, Cecil Township Board of Supervisors had gotten so many complaints from residents living in close proximity to oil and gas development with no resolutions from the companies that we decided to revisit our 500-foot setback. Initially going into the hearings, I had no idea where we would go or what would change, if anything at all. We listened to hours upon hours of resident testimony, from doctors to scientists to professors and more. We listened to residents who currently live 500 feet from well pads, 1,000 feet from well pads, 1,500 feet from well pads, and every one of them said the same thing. There was a direct impact on their health and well-being from being so close to this industrial development. We had the opportunity to hear testimony from representatives from oil and gas companies and experts they brought in to show the safety of the industry. Although I don't think their expert testimony went the way they expected it to. I'll give you an example. In the spring of 2024, I had the opportunity to cross-examine Dr. Christopher Long. He has a degree from Harvard in environmental health and a master's degree from MIT in environmental engineering. He's also a board-certified toxicologist, or so he says. Initially, when I read his report prior to the hearing, I was impressed. He clearly has a lot of high-profile degrees and has done a lot of studies, including the Fort Cherry study, which is relied on a regular basis by the industry to show safety. But as I dug into the studies and read the reports, things weren't adding up. I'll start at the beginning. His board certification for toxicology is simply a paper certification. He's not a medical doctor, analytic chemist, epidemiologist, or any other scientist that would become board certified. There's actually no specific degree requirement to take the board certification test he took to stand before our board and tell us that oil and gas development is safe in close proximity to our residents. In the Fort Cherry study he conducted, he tested for VOCs, but didn't mention them all in the study. When I asked him why on the stand, he said he only included the ones that he was asked to include by the company that paid for the study. He left out some of the most harmful VOCs. He also noted in the study that the method he used to test for the VOC acrolein wasn't a proper scientific method. At Cecil Township's Augustine well pad, he claimed they do 24/7 air monitoring. However, when I looked at the data, I noticed they only report the air data every 6 days. I wondered why. It seemed odd to me. Why do you say 24/7 air monitoring and then only report data every 6th day? So I looked up the methodology that they used, TO15. That methodology required the canisters they are using to collect VOCs to be left out no longer than 24 hours. After 24 hours, the VOCs begin to diminish in the canister and the data is inaccurate. So I asked Dr. Long about this. I didn't actually know the answer or what he was going to say. He confirmed they leave the canisters out for 6 days before collecting them. This was clearly in violation of the methodology and would make the results invalid, but they still to this day continue to rely on that data to show safety. I won't walk through the entire cross-examination, but I can provide it for anyone who wants to watch it. It's about 30 minutes long. At the end of the testimony, I asked Dr. Long if he would recommend our residents live in close proximity to oil and gas development. He declined to answer the question. After nearly 9 months of hearings, Cecil Township Board of Supervisors, in a 3 in favor, 2 abstention vote, passed a setback of 2,500 feet from occupied structures and 5,000 feet from schools and hospitals. There is an option for residents to sign a waiver to allow it closer. It cannot exceed the state setback of 500 feet, but if they know the risk and choose to allow development closer, they would be permitted to do so. We do, however, have an obligation to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the residents who do not want to live in close proximity to oil and gas development, and we could not in good conscience vote to allow it any closer than 2,500 feet. Immediately after enacting the ordinance, Cecil was met with lawsuits by 2 companies in the industry, as well as more open records requests than our township staff can deal with. I believe the goal of this is to try to force us to back down from our position of protecting our residents with greater setbacks by forcing us to spend money on legal fees they think we can't afford. In a lot of other municipalities, these tactics have worked. At the end of the day, it comes down to this. I've spent a significant amount of time learning about things I need to know about to be able to help residents in Cecil Township.
Supervisor Fisher, you're at
Yes.
the 8-minute mark, so if you can just kind of.
This is my last sentence.
Okay.
Other municipalities and other supervisors may not do this. To be frank, it shouldn't be my job. This is why I'm here today, to ask you to take the same stance Cecil did and protect all residents in Pennsylvania.
Thank you so much. Michelle, would you like to go next?
Mr. Chairman, point of order. Back here. Thank you. Even though this is not a voting session on the floor of the House, and it is a public hearing, I would ask that you prevent future testifiers from more character assassination. I did not appreciate some of the testimony that I just heard. Thank you.
Okay. I'm not sure what you're referring to, but we'll try to. I'll try to keep my ears open. Okay. Thank you. Michelle, why don't you get started?
Hi, I would just like to first thank you all for hearing me out today and allowing me to talk to you about what I've been through. Again, my name is Michelle Stonemark, and I live in Cecil Township, approximately 523 feet from the George Augustine Unconventional well pad owned by Range Resources. This pad was approved in 2017 based on an old oil and gas ordinance in place in Cecil Township. My family and I fought the pad, but we lost in court. Since Cecil Township recently updated its oil and gas ordinance, I will refer to this as the previous ordinance as the old ordinance. Cecil Township developed the old ordinance in 2009 based on state minimum standards and input from industry leaders. I would like to touch upon 2 huge factors in that ordinance that affected my family specifically, the setbacks and the noise. I'll begin with the setbacks. Cecil Township used the state minimum setback of 500 feet when they began drilling the Augustine pad in 2020. They drilled 4 wells. It was a little over 500 feet from my home, 600 feet from my parents' home, and a little over 800 feet from a neighborhood of 250 homes to the south of the pad. In 2020 and 2021, Range Resources used their green fleet while they conducted an air study at the Augustine well pad. We suffered from months of sleepless nights because of the noise, spent countless days unable to let our children play outside because of the smells in the air. We suffered from nosebleeds, headaches, and nausea. One terrible aspect was the flaring, which looked like a giant flamethrower shooting a large stream fire into the sky just behind our home. The startup of the flaring would create such a loud boom it would wake us from our sleep, and the hissing would keep us awake for several hours. The flaring would light up our entire home, and during that time, the air around us smelled distinctly different, an industrial smell of chemicals and other terrible odors that we have not experienced before or since. It would burn off some kind of smoke that we could see and smell in the air. However, Range would later produce their long-term air quality study and claim that our air was fine. The noise from drilling was constant and most likely contributed to our headaches. There was a constant low-sounding rumble that could be felt and heard in our beds at night. We would complain to the township, and Range would come out to our house with sound monitors and determine that they were in compliance with our ordinance. The biggest issue we had during that time was the anxiety we all felt. It was like living in constant fear. We would hear a loud noise that would sound like gunshots, massive clanging in the middle of the nights, and we lived in fear that something was wrong at the pad that would cause us all harm. We would call Range's 24/7 response line, and they would take hours or sometimes days to get back to us. We never knew if things were safe and functioning as expected, or if there was a reason for us to worry. I would like to remind you all of where you were in 2020 and 2021. A vast majority of the time that they were drilling and fracking, we were trapped in our home by the COVID pandemic, which was already a time of massive high anxiety for everyone. After the last well was fracked, things settled down for a while, but we would still hear the constant truck traffic and pipes clanging through all hours of the night. Then Range returned in 2023 to begin 5 new wells. This time they did not bring their green fleet, and they did not do an air quality study. What we experienced during the first wave of drilling was magnified exponentially. The smells, the trucks, and especially the noise seemed to increase. This round of drilling was nothing short of unbearable. The old Cecil ordinance only required Range Resources to remain under a certain level of decibels called dBAs. These are the sounds that you hear most commonly, like someone talking or a vacuum cleaner. What the old ordinance did not account for were DBCs, which are low-frequency sounds. Imagine sitting at a red light and a car with its bass on very, very loud pulls up next to you. The thumping sound can be felt in your chest and in your head, and the change in your cup holder will rattle. Those are DBCs, and that is what was being emitted from the Augustine well pad. On an average day, the city of Pittsburgh will experience DBCs between 60 and 70. We live in a rural area on private property, and the Augustine well pad was averaging between 80 and 90 DBCs every day. Our house would literally vibrate. Pictures shook on walls. Tools would clang in the garage, and water in a glass would shake on the table. We couldn't sleep in certain rooms of the house, including our master bedroom. Our kitchen was the worst room in the house, and we couldn't spend any more than a few minutes in there. Dishes would rattle, and the sound and noise would just pump in our chests. Again, we would complain. Range would put out a sound monitor, but they were in compliance. No one suffered more than my eldest daughter, who felt as though she had bugs crawling on her and felt like she was coming out of her skin. Remember, as a family, we still had the other side effects as well. Sleepless nights, horrible smells outside, huge fireballs in the air, and the constant fear and anxiety. The nausea and headaches at this point were almost a daily occurrence. At this time, I began having representatives from Cecil Township to my home so they could experience it for themselves. Several Cecil Township supervisors and employees stood in my kitchen and immediately complained they could feel it in their head and chest after only a few minutes. I began advocating heavily for increased setbacks and started sharing videos and pictures of my experience with other Cecil Township residents. With help from the Cecil Township supervisors, some of whom voted for the Augustine well pad to begin with, the process began to update our ordinance and our township oil and gas ordinance. During that time, Range's own air study was proved flawed, as Cindy Fisher claimed, under oath by their expert. After several months of hearings and overwhelming residential support and testimony from several experts in the industry, the Board of Supervisors passed a new oil and gas ordinance in late 2024. The new ordinance increased setbacks to 2,500 feet from residents and included specific provisions for DBCs, those low-frequency sounds. While this new ordinance will not help my family, it will protect thousands of other residents in Cecil from going through the same ordeal. That being said, it shouldn't vary township to township. That's why I've been advocating heavily for increased setbacks across the state of Pennsylvania. Increasing setbacks would not only help protect residents from the bright lights, heavy flaring, awful smells, massive truck traffic, but it would also make a huge difference in the noise problems that are associated with unconventional drilling. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Okay, finally in this panel, Lois, I think you wanted to do a video in lieu of the bulk of your testimony. That'd be fine.
Are we on now? Okay, good. Good morning. Thank you so much for letting me speak and show you the video that I'm going to. I could sit up here with a slide presentation and show you and talk about people's stories like Michelle and things that I work with, but I did bring a short little film to introduce you to some folks that I work with on the ground that have had unfortunately negative impacts from oil and gas. And I am with the Clean Air Council. I host Frackland Tours. Clean Air Council has and is an environmental organization that has been fighting for the right for people to live in healthy communities and breathe clean air for over 50 years. And Frackland Tours were implemented to give people firsthand accounts of what it's like to live and grow up in the shale field. So without further ado, we'll take a look at the film.
Okay, thank you. I think this goes about 8 minutes. Is that it? Okay.
This is Michelle's house and the well pad by her home.
Okay. Is there a volume?
Yeah, there is. There should be.
Okay.
You might have to back it up, yeah.
Okay, just. What about the volume on that bottom bar? Or the bar above that? Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry?
I was going to say put the mic at the computer.
You're gonna get in that good.
Solutions proposed to reduce our dependence on foreign oil. It's working. As of 2024, the U.S. produces more natural gas than any country ever. More aware that they are paying. In Washington County, Pennsylvania, the majority of residents live within a 1-mile radius of a pad, which begs the question, How close is too close? Cracks in deep rock formations in order to extract the natural gas that they hold. One of the many solutions proposed to reduce our dependence on foreign oil. It's working. As of 2024, the U.S. produces more natural gas than any country ever. This has come at a cost, one that residents have become more and more aware that they are paying. In Washington County, Pennsylvania, the majority of residents live within a 1-mile radius of a pad, which begs the question, how close is too close? This can be a very hard question to answer. Fracking is an extremely controversial topic, and much of the publicly available information on it is either biased or incorrect. Searching for something more authentic, we decided to visit residents of Washington County and ask them what they thought.
While Range was doing the vertical drilling, our house would shake and vibrate. I would have a glass of water on the counter and you could watch the movement of it. I couldn't sleep at night. The noises were so loud. I mean, this is our home, and we felt like we were prisoners in our own home. We dealt with water trucks, major sand cans, traffic going 60 miles an hour right in front of the house. The house built in 1877 rattled our house. And in 2019, my husband and I decided that we did not want to live in Scenery Hill on the main road there with all of the traffic and the air pollution that was in Scenery Hill. Scenery Hill has a lot of gas wells in it. Very, very heavy air pollution. It's pretty bad. So that's when we decided. We found an area. You can see I live on 5 acres here in Charleroi, Fallowfield Township. We live in a cul-de-sac neighborhood. We thought when we moved here we would kind of be a little bit safe. And within a couple months of us moving here in August of 2019, we started hearing a lot of noise, but we realized they were fracking in the cul-de-sac. So when I thought I was trying to get away from gas wells a little bit, it did not work. I thought I was safe with 5 acres surrounded by trees and woods. We couldn't get away from it. It's right here, 0.25 miles from my house.
And the noise it's crazy. The noise never gets talked about. I mean, if I sit here and leave my Harley run out here, he can call the police. They'll come up and arrest me. But I can listen to over 100 decibels 24/7, which we've already recorded, usually in the 70s, and nothing can be done. Nothing can be done. They're exempt from it, and that's not right.
We have to buy water. I mean,
yeah, I won't drink it. It's got a film on it, and it smells a little bit, but we've had it checked by the DEP a couple times now, and it always comes back, oh no.
I checked my spring one morning and behind my shop here, and there was a oil film on it. So I took a sample of it. I called EQT. They sent somebody out right away. Well, DEP came first. Instead of them taking the sample out of my spring, they took the sample out of my water tank, which made no sense at all. You know, they could have came and scraped that off like I did and put it in a jar. It is nice and clean right now. It's what it is. It's oil.
You can see the oil.
It's oil. But no, the water's clean. I'll shake it up for you. Look at it. It's supposed to be clean.
The one time we called the DEP, I called them. They came up. We ran my pump dry in the basement. They let it fill up again. They took a water sample. They said they'd let me know in a month. Well, 6 months later, I keep calling them, and they tell me, well, we're not quite done with it. As soon as we're done, we'll let you know. Well, 2 weeks later, I get a letter in the mail, and I open it up. It's from the gas company with the results of my water test from the DEP. Sure. I never talked about the gas company. I just wanted my water checked. And so I don't even know how they got involved, but they did. And of course it came back, oh, it's not bad.
And then do they build these things? Oh, no, you're going to have jobs. Wait, there are no jobs. No. These are all robotic.
Yeah, the compressor station has 0 people working at it.
A functioning well pad has no employees. There are no jobs with this stuff.
Yeah, once they're built.
Once they're built. And the only jobs that are left are things like cleaning out the radioactive sludge from the pipelines and the brine trucks. And
well, that's a deathly job.
I know right here, there's a hill with a gas well on it, and I would see like a flickering light in the middle of the night, or just like a red light, or I'd see flames, and I'd be so confused on what it was. And I was like, what is that thing doing in my backyard? Why does it have fire? Why is it a red light? Why is it a white light? Why is it blinking? And then there would be other times where the entire pad would light up with super bright white lights, and then you would like see all the lights go up, and then you would just see a flare on top.
They offered us to stay in a hotel, but I have a husband, 3 kids, and 2 cats. That's not really an option. We can't share a hotel room.
We can go on and on and on about all of the rare cancers and diseases and neurological issues, kidney cancers, brain cancers. We can go on and on with all of the people in this area.
About twice a month, we can be upstairs in our bedroom, and I'm looking out the window, and I'll see this big, I don't know if it's smoke or if it's just some kind of fumes that they set off. We can't open a window. I haven't had a window open here since this plant got built because they let out these fumes every so often. And I have terrible breathing now. I'm on an inhaler. My wife's on an inhaler. She's had 2 open heart surgeries. I've had throat cancer now.
All of this is in pipelines, and I have to tell you, and I know we have some great welders in the country, but they're not perfect. And okay, so they have miles and miles and thousands of miles up and down hills and over rivers and dales and all of this stuff, and there's all these pipelines. Okay, well, unless the weld is perfect and holds for the all infinite time, okay, which doesn't happen, those wells leak. They're going to break and they're going to leak, and then they're going to come up in your, I don't know, water.
The road, there's constant traffic, constant fracking traffic, and I'm talking about big diesel trucks hauling irradiated water, whether it be sand or whatever other materials they need to complete the fracking process. They deliver it, and it's usually shipped on my road, and it's very loud almost all the time.
But I just know that it's pitiful that I can't have a window open in my own house because of the smell. And this...
And we have a noise maker in the when it goes to block the noise from there, even with the windows closed.
She runs a fan winter and summer, and we have a noise maker, so she can't hear this humming at night.
Range has asked me what they can do, and continually my answer to them is, finish what you're doing and don't come back. I don't want you back here. It should not be this close to people's homes.
Dale helped us.
Dale helped a lot. He'd call me. He says, hey, they're coming, DEP's coming on the road today. He says, make sure you're home. I said, okay, I'll be there.
Dale definitely, when he became supervisor,
he worked for it.
He cared about the residents. If there was a problem, I've talked to Dale on numerous occasions, noise related, whatever spills, and Dale was definitely did what he could to do something. And I can't say that about any of the other supervisors.
Okay, thank you. I think that's my recollection is that's probably about the end of it. Okay, very good. Thank you for putting that together. Okay, so we will begin questioning. Chair Rader, would you like to begin?
I would. Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple quick questions. Ms. Fisher, first with you. Are you still there? Yes. Hi, how are you?
I'm here. Good, how are you?
Cecil Township held numerous hearings on setbacks, increased setbacks in 2024, and you enacted an ordinance in 2024 and reenacted in 2025. Would I be correct to say the Cecil Board of Supervisors acted on the ordinances based on the testimony and comments received at the public hearings, or was there any other outstanding information that wasn't presented at the public hearings?
No, it was solely based on testimony and listening to the residents at the hearings.
Okay. Now, did you guys, because I was a township supervisor for a while, so I know what you can and cannot do. Did you hire any of your own expert testifiers when you had these public hearings, or did you just rely on others?
We did not. We were advised by our township engineer, but we didn't hire any specific expert.
Okay. Did he testify at all?
He provided information to us publicly during the hearing, but he did not testify himself.
Thank you. And I have just one quick question for the homeowner. How long did you live in the home before the initial gas well permits were issued by the township?
Before they were issued?
Yes.
I'm not sure when the initial permits were issued. We built our home in 2018.
Okay. I'm not sure. I'll ask testimony for later on. So you built in 2018?
Correct. We had, my father bought a large parcel of land in 2010, and he divided up for his children so we could all build a house up there. And
The only reason I asked that question, I'm wondering if the township okayed the well pads before you built.
my plans were in place, and when we fought the well pad, we had already subdivided my property. We already hired an architect. We already had filed our plans with the township.
But do you know if they had actually gotten their permits already also?
For them, I'm not sure. On their side, I'm not sure.
Because I think that matters.
I know that I fought a lot about it on my side because we were already financially committed to building our house.
And they
so.
may have been also. That's what
Right,
my question
correct.
is. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Rep. Geppert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I will just, can you hear me? Oh, okay. So, at the end of your testimony, you said you don't think these should vary township to township. I would have to differ on that because in one of my largest township, both population and land-wise, they are just complaining that the Act 13 dollars are going down. They want more drilling. Why? Because they just had to raise taxes 3 mills to cover the difference. So I think I don't think that's a good one-size-fits-all because the Commonwealth is very different. My area supports natural gas. I mean, we want more of it to come in. It would benefit everybody up there. So, but
I'm sorry.
I just want to follow up on what Chairman Rader said. I believe, if I have the facts right here, that the Planning Commission, then they had public ads. There was a conditional use approved on July 3rd, 2017.
Correct.
Correct?
I'm asking.
Oh, okay.
Correct,
yeah. For this well pad.
Okay.
You did not buy the property until October of that year.
My father bought the property in large parcel in 2010.
So you decided to build your house after this was knowingly going to become a well area. We're going to hear later from Earthworks testifier that he doesn't think it would be smart for anybody to build within 2,000 feet of these things. But you knowingly built a house. In law, they would call that coming to the nuisance doctrine. You voluntarily went to the nuisance and then complained.
So my alternative would have been to lose hundreds of thousands of dollars that I invested into that property and that house.
Well, you didn't invest anything yet because...
I did invest it already. I was not living...
You did? You
Yes.
paid $1 for the property.
I paid $1 to my father for the property.
Oh, okay. So you
But that's
could've-
not to say that I didn't invest money in getting engineering done, in getting architectural drawings done,
Before the conditional use was approved?
before the conditional use was approved,
But you didn't buy the property till October.
when I could start building
But you
and clearing the property.
can't do anything till you own it though, right?
My father owned the property,
Okay.
and my father was built next door just over 600 feet away. And my father can still testify if he wanted to come here. The same things that I dealt with, he did. He's just in his 70s and doesn't choose to do so.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Rep. Brown.
Good morning. Thank y'all for testifying. So it sounds like what you were describing was exactly some of the things that we go through in West Philly, with all the noise and the shaking. Just a little bit about myself. I grew up literally right next to a fire station on 56 and Market. 56 and Chestnut was the fire station, and then on 56 and Market on the same block with my residence in between was the SEPTA L train station. So trains and fire station, so we're right in the middle. So I would love to, like what y'all described sounds kind of crazy, but I would like to see, like, I was expecting when the third testifier said that, oh, they got video, I thought we were going to see videos of the shaking glasses and all that kind of stuff. So
I can provide
if
them
that's
if
the
you'd like.
case, yeah, I would like to see that. But all right, so let's say these setbacks are permitted. I represent West Philadelphia. My residents depend on the electricity, the natural gas to heat our homes. So if the setbacks are permitted, I would assume that there will be increased costs associated for the consumer, for my constituents. So can someone answer, is there some kind of potential system or grants or some kind of assistance in place so my residents are not forced to leave the homes that they're in because they can't afford their utility bills?
So I can't answer to, the area where you live, but I can tell you that with our, let me see if I can form this correctly. Our utilities are increasing already. We are not energy independent. The gas is shipped overseas. Pretty much 70 to 75% of our gas is shipped overseas. So we don't get any of that. We may get a small portion, and depending on where it's going, whether it's going to petrochemicals, ethane, butane, and all of that, as to where it's getting split up and shipped to be overseas or to other areas. I was just in Belgium, and our gas from the Revolution pipeline goes to Belgium, to the to Port of Antwerp through Texas. So it's moving all around. But when you go back to utility costs, they're expected to quadruple in the next couple of years because of the volatility of the oil and gas market. That's what we're seeing. So I agree with you. I think it's awful that people aren't going to be able to afford their own utilities and where they live. But the point is that if we were to be energy independent, we would have been now at this point. We're 20 years in. We're not energy independent. It's being shipped overseas to make a profit for the companies.
So with the setbacks,
I would also just quickly,
go ahead,
can
Cindy.
I just add very, very quickly? I would also like to point out a significant number of our residents who live 500 feet from well pads don't even actually have natural gas at their homes.
I don't.
To Lois's point, this oil and gas is a significant portion of it. I'd say more than 70% is shipped overseas.
Yeah, so I'm talking about the residents in my community in West Philadelphia, because there will be an increase. So again, with the setbacks, if they are permitted, there will be an additional on top of sending overseas and all that. I get that. So this will be another additional. And real quick, you had a video. What were the walls? I seen walls around it. What are the walls for?
So those are what the industry calls sound walls, and those are usually put up to protect people from sound or people that live that close to well pads. But they're really like it's a lot of some of them are sheets of plastic put together. They're about a couple inches thick or so, or it's more like a burlap. They don't do an awful lot. It's just sort of a barrier in between.
So the walls don't work?
No, not at all. Michelle's had sound walls, and then they're kept up for a number of years, and so they start to tear apart and everything else. And if anything, in the Kings, where you saw the two people that were speaking, like the sound wall around that compressor is metal, so everything's funneled directly into their house, so that the people who lease their property to them are protected on this side, but the Kings are not.
Got it. All right, so to close, so there's no potential conversations about assistance for my constituents who will have to face increases on their utility bills?
I don't know anything if there would be or not. Cindy, I don't know if you do or not.
I can't confirm whether that would increase or not.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions before we? Oh, Rep. Pugh, I'm sorry.
That's okay, no problem. So I do live in a community that has compressor stations and gas lines, and they've had them for the last 75 years. They're not new. People just don't see them once they're underground, and they don't disturb anybody. And I truly think that this is a local community issue. Every community is different across the state of Pennsylvania. I don't think this should be a statewide rule. our community was able to work with the compressor station and the flare-offs and stuff that they do, which is located very close to a school district, in order to do that timely so that our residents are notified prior to it going off and prior to anybody being scared. And it's not an issue anymore. So I'm not sure why you think it needs to go statewide when our state is not built the same.
My comment to that would be that our initial ordinance, the old ordinance, was based off state standards and never would have happened if the setbacks were further. It never would have been built so close to the neighborhood and mine and my family's homes. So if the statewide mandate is still 500 feet, then someone in a smaller community that doesn't have an updated oil and gas ordinance is going to get something 500 feet from their house. And I'm telling you what I'm dealing with 500 feet from my house. So that's why I feel like those smaller communities are the ones that don't have the knowledge to update the oil and gas ordinance. They need protected.
Right, and I get that, but we all have to understand, being a previous real estate agent in my previous life, our land is our land. Do you want to be told what to do with your home? So whoever's land that is located on, they have the right to do what they want with their land, and I just don't think we should be implementing any stronger penalties on that.
That's actually not true. That's the whole purpose of zoning. You can't do something on your land or your property that harms your neighbor. So for example, last week we had a company want to put a contractor's yard in a residential area, and it's not permitted because it's zoned residential. That's the whole purpose of it.
Correct,
So
at the local level. Zoning handled that at the local level.
Right. So you can do what you want to do on your land as long as it doesn't harm your neighbors. And I think the point that's important here is it took us in Cecil Township 9 months and a significant amount of money in order to update our ordinance. Not every township municipality has the ability to do that. We've also continued, as I said in my testimony, we continue to have to deal with litigation. We've had more open records requests than our 8-person staff can handle. So we've had to pass that off, which is also costing us additional funds. And to be honest, those of us that made this decision have had to deal with character attacks, death threats. It's more than a township supervisor should have to say. And to the rep whose name I forget, I apologize, who said that he wants it in his community, that's why Cecil Township enacted the waiver provision, which says the standard is 2,500 feet. But if you and your neighbors agree that you want oil and gas development in closer proximity, so up to 500 feet, you can sign a waiver and it can be permitted, but you have to be told and made aware of all the risks. So it's the best of both worlds. If you live in a community where people want it and they want more of it, sign the waiver and have it. If you don't, then you get the 2,500 foot setback.
And I'd like to also say that with lines being able to go as far as they can drill up to 5 miles now. So there's really no point or no reason, no logical reason that it needs to be 500 feet from somebody's house. If they can drill out 5 miles in any direction, then it shouldn't have to be that close to anybody.
Well, and if I can say too, if you're talking about local levels and things like that, and as Cindy said in zoning, is to protect, neighbors and stuff like that. Why in the communities that they don't want to have oil and gas or have a proper setback, why isn't that allowed? That doesn't make any sense to me. That's really a double standard. Is like, well, we want to have it here, which is fine, but some communities don't, and they want to have better setbacks. And then you run into, as Cindy said, socioeconomic differences in different communities, so that some communities had no choice, so they just buckled under the pressure to oil and gas because they didn't have the money to do that, to fight back with them. And so then they were inundated when they didn't really want to be. So that's not fair either. And then that does become state-based as far as that's concerned.
Okay, we are nearing the end of the allotted time. Is there a quick question before we move to our next presenter? Okay, well, thank all three of you very much for your testimony today. Very much appreciated.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Our next presenter will be Dr. Edward Katayer, President, Physicians for Social Responsibility. Thank you, Rabot. Thank you, Dr. Kataya. We appreciate your coming today, and you can begin when ready.
Thank you. I think that here are some slides. That's great. Okay, thank you very much. Good morning. My name is Ned Kataya. I'm a pediatrician from Southwestern Pennsylvania, now retired from clinical practice. I'm medical advisor to Environmental Health Project, president of Physicians for Social Responsibility Pennsylvania, and a member of the American Academy of Pediatrics Council on Environmental Health and Climate Change. Today, I'm going to show you some of the peer-reviewed public health research on fracking in the context of proximity, which will make the case for expanded health protective setbacks in Pennsylvania. Unless you live near fracking, it's hard to appreciate just how close the infrastructure is to homes, businesses, and to schools and medical clinics. Even living here in Washington County, it's sometimes hard to see some of the infrastructure because so much of it is hidden by hills and trees and by foliage. So you have to try to get a view from space by using a satellite map tool. Next slide, please. We're going to look at the Range Resources Augustine well pad in Cecil Township. You've heard about that so far. It's in Washington County, which is the most heavily fracked county in Pennsylvania. This year, Cecil Township supervisors, as you've heard, passed a new ordinance requiring a 2,500-foot buffer from new fracked gas wells and homes and 5,000 feet from schools, daycares, senior facilities, hospitals, and other sensitive buildings. The existing setback, as you know, is 500 feet. Next slide, please. Zooming in, I want to point out that the Augustine well pad contains 8 fracked gas wells, 8 compressors, and 6 condensate tanks. Most shale gas well pads in Pennsylvania have multiple wells on them. One well pad being developed near my house has been permitted to hold more than 3 dozen wells. The edge of the well pad is 525 feet from the closest home. I've visited this home several times. You've heard compelling testimony from the resident who lives there. About 1,000 feet from the well pad is a parking lot of a popular commercial business, and 930 feet away is the edge of a large residential community with more than 230 single-family homes. Next slide. Very good epidemiological research tells us that Pennsylvania's current setback distance of 500 feet is too close. Within 1 kilometer or 0.6 miles of a fracked gas well in Pennsylvania, which fits into this 1 mile circle, Weinberger at EHP found residents in southwestern Pennsylvania complaining of a variety of adverse health symptoms consistent with living close to fracked gas well, including headaches, sore throat, burning eyes, nasal congestion, cough, wheezing, difficulty breathing, and stress. McKenzie studied residents living within 1 kilometer of a fracked gas well in Colorado and found that their risk of developing subacute and chronic health symptoms and cancer was significantly higher compared to people living further away. Willis found an association between living within 1 kilometer of a fracked gas well and gestational hypertension and eclampsia in pregnant women. Tang found associations with birth defects 1 kilometer away, neural tube defects, stomach defects, and congenital heart defects. Clark at Yale University discovered that young children living within 2 kilometers, which is 1.2 miles away, of a fracked gas well in Pennsylvania had 2 to 3 times the risk of developing acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Evelyn Talbot at the University of Pittsburgh, in tandem with the Pennsylvania Department of Health, found that children living within 1 mile of a fracked gas well in southwestern Pennsylvania had 5 to 7 times the risk of developing lymphoma compared to children living further away. Next slide, please. Within a 3-mile circle from a fracked gas well in Pennsylvania, Curry and Hill both found a higher risk of adverse birth outcomes, low birth weight and prematurity in newborn babies. Cushing found the same thing and attributed it to flaring at gas wells. Willis studied mental health impacts in residents living inside of 2 miles in Canada and in the US, including Pennsylvania, and found a high degree of stress. Next slide, please. Even 10 kilometers or 6 miles away from fracking, a higher risk of health damage is being seen with more adverse birth outcomes, birth defects, migraine headaches, and mental health impacts that can be severe. These risks reach people living in populated areas of Cecil Township, but also McDonald, Cannonsburg, and in Bridgeville in Allegheny County. Next slide, please. Researchers have found health damage as far away as 10 miles from a fracked gas well, with residents suffering birth defects, high blood pressure, and signs of heart disease. University of Pittsburgh researchers found 4 to 5 times higher risk of asthmatics experiencing severe asthma attacks if they lived within this 10-mile circle, putting Robinson Township, all of Bridgeville, Heidelberg, and most of Carnegie in Allegheny County at risk, as well as most of Peters Township, where I live, North Shebane, Cannonsburg, Houston, and the northern part of Little Washington. So a lot of people are at risk from this 184 well pad in Cecil Township. Beyond 10 miles, and people are still at risk with radioactive particles detected 12 miles away and greenhouse gas emissions driving climate change everywhere. Next slide. Let's skip the next 2 slides. These are just summaries. If we could go to slide 10. I recently used Google Earth to find and label shale gas sites near my neighborhood in Washington County. I did not include the thousands of conventional oil and gas wells that can be very hard to find on a satellite map, but they're also a threat to people living near them. I wanted to see where the Cannon-McMillan schools were located in relation to all this fracking infrastructure. Those school buildings are indicated by the yellow thumbtacks, and you can see just how close they are. Cannon-Mac is the school district that was discovered to have a large number of students who developed Ewing sarcoma and a bunch of other rare and serious cancers. Looking at this map is shocking to me as a pediatrician, but also as a father. No one should be surprised that kids who live and learn nearby are getting sick. Next slide. The 10-mile area around the Augustine well pad contains more than 54 well pads with approximately 269 unconventional wells, 5 compressor stations, and many more compressors on well pads, multiple pipeline pigging stations, a large commercial landfill that has received fracking waste, and 3 enormous cryogenic gas processing plants, as well as hundreds of residential neighborhoods and dozens of schools, daycare centers, medical clinics, and hospitals. When we consider the aggregate of all the emissions and pollution and waste that comes off of all of these sites, we can begin to see with our own eyes and understand why people exposed to this industry are getting sick with serious symptoms and diseases. And here's the thing, no one should be surprised. Now ask yourself, would you build or buy a house 500 feet from a fracked gas well pad? Would you move your family to 1,000 feet from a fracking site or 2,000 feet? I'm going to guess that knowing what we know about living close to fracking infrastructure, your answer is no, you wouldn't. 500 feet is way too close. So is 2,000 feet. 10 miles might be too close. What is obvious is that fracking should not operate close to where people live and work, where children learn and play, where parents expect their kids will stay healthy and thrive in their homes and communities. Finally, don't be complicit. Be champions instead. Expand the setbacks. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Rep Brown?
Yes, good morning. Thank you for your testimony. The images that you displayed, that were very helpful. I appreciate that. All right, so let's say these setbacks do go in place. Where in the Commonwealth will the industry be able to expand or drill? Because if you're saying 10 miles is too close, would that wipe out the entire Commonwealth of Pennsylvania from them expanding?
Yeah, Rep Brown, I might suggest, before you answer that, what we have before us is a pediatrician, a physician testifying on the health effects of fracking and its proximity. You're asking him to answer a question that's really beyond his area of expertise and the reason he was brought here to testify.
Chairman, I don't agree. The
well,
images,
that's what
the images that he...
Well, you know, if you become chairman, you can your thoughts will control. But you know, you can answer, doctor, if you want to. But I just want to, you know, we have witnesses with various areas of expertise, and we bring them up to talk about their areas of expertise. So, Doctor, if you want to answer that, fine. And if you don't, I mean, I get it.
Yeah, no, I would like to answer it. And with all due respect, I'm a physician. I'm also a resident of Washington County, so there's a lot of fracking that's close to me. But I don't have an answer, frankly, about where the industry is going to drill. That is, my concern is with people's health, my neighbors, my family, your family, everyone's health. That's where my concern is.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Rep Day.
Thank you. Chairman, I came late to your hearing because I was at another hearing, so I appreciate your indulgence to let me ask a question here. Doctor, I wanted to ask you, people are going to ask me, I mean, this is compelling testimony, what you have here, and thank you for being here today. How is it related or correlated? So I see the concentric circles, no safe distance, and then you list the different adverse outcomes, adverse birth outcomes, cancer relation. Is it just, are we at level 1 where you just gathered the medical data for this geographic area, or have you actually tied it to, you said it 2 or 3 times, no one should be surprised, no one should be surprised. So I'm trying to understand, have you correlated it to that, or are there other things in the landfill that we should look into as well, just to qualify and verify that this is causation from these well pad sites?
Well, I want to first, it's important to note that none of the studies are saying that fracking is causing this. These studies are not designed to prove causation. They're to make associations between living near fracking and health impacts that are being seen in the community. What I'm showing is what the studies have concluded as far from different distances to a well pad. This particular well pad in Pennsylvania has 8 wells on them, plus compressors. It generates a lot of air emissions. I can go, walk you through what is known that comes off of these well pads, what goes into the landfills from the waste that's generated, what goes to other states to injection wells. We can talk about the radioactivity, the heavy metals, the air particulates, the VOCs, the radioactivity, as I said. These studies, I think, are all saying the same thing, which is the closer people live to fracking, there's an association between serious symptoms and health impacts.
Thank you for that answer. I appreciate it. Mr. Chairman, I said at the beginning of my comments I wanted to clarify his testimony, and he did so very well, and I appreciate that. From my lay position, I would say that the way I go through this process is it is level 1 or 2, or maybe even as far as 3, depending how many levels you would break in the analysis to. And I appreciate your answer to my question. Thank you. And thank you, Chairman, for the work that you've done in this area.
Thank you. Okay. We may have time for one more question if there is one. And if there's not, that's okay too. Okay. Doctor, thank you. Thank you very much for your testimony and being here today. We appreciate it. Thank you. Keep up the great work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next, we will have Patrick Henderson from the Vice President, Government Affairs and Communications, Marcellus Shale Coalition. And Patrick, certainly no stranger to Harrisburg.
Good morning, Chairman Vitale and Chairman Rader. My name is Patrick Henderson. I appreciate the opportunity to testify today on behalf of the Marcellus Shale Coalition. The MSC's member companies represent all sectors of the production, transportation, and downstream use of natural gas, as well as the supply chain professional service firms and skilled trades who work with the industry. Our members produce and process 95% of Pennsylvania's natural gas, and as such are the ones, along with Pennsylvania royalty owners, ratepayers, and employees, most negatively impacted by this legislation. It is worth observing that none of the legislators who have co-sponsored this legislation have any unconventional natural gas wells in their district. Your colleagues who do have unconventional wells and who would be directly impacted by their lost jobs and royalty payments see this legislation for what it is, a de facto ban on future natural gas development. As reflected in my submitted testimony, MSC member companies have used GIS mapping to gauge the impact of the setbacks included in House Bill 1946. This results in some of Pennsylvania's most rural counties still having up to 99% of their surface land banned from future development. I encourage you to review in detail the white paper attached to my testimony. You will hear, and we have heard, from some proponents of this bill that it is not a ban, that with longer laterals, operators can simply use the small remaining percentage of surface land available to drill. This claim is absurd. None of these proponents have ever run a natural gas company. They have no appreciation for the complexity of the business, nor the related infrastructure necessary to operate this industry. Nor do they care. Let's be clear, the proponents of this legislation have been unabashed in their desire to ban natural gas development. We should not be surprised that this legislation would do just that. Pennsylvania can be proud of its role in balancing environmental and public health protections with responsible energy development. Pennsylvania has been aggressive in modernizing its industry standards. In 2012, the legislature passed a comprehensive rewrite of the Oil and Gas Act, including more than 40 new environmental standards. PADEP regulations have been updated multiple times with standards for air quality, water protection, surface and subsurface operations, which are among the strictest in the nation. The setback distances currently in place in Pennsylvania are the most stringent among the top 5 natural gas producing states in the nation. And no industry is subject to more inspections from environmental regulators, with the shale industry's compliance rate of over 97%, perhaps the highest of any industry in the state. The benefits of natural gas development for Pennsylvania have been undeniable. No longer are we dependent on distant states like Texas to transport natural gas to keep our lights on and our homes heated. Pennsylvania went from importing 75% of its natural gas from other states to today producing nearly 20% of the nation's gas. We also recently heard that 70 to 75% of this natural gas is shipped overseas. It's simply absurd. In 2024, 11% of all U.S. production exited the United States. This in-state production insulates Pennsylvania consumers and ratepayers from supply disruptions. It allows Pennsylvania consumer dollars to be spent paying Pennsylvanians, resulting in billions of dollars in state tax revenues. From an environmental perspective, the use of natural gas has reduced emissions of NOx, SOx, and particulate matter by nearly 80 to 90%, resulting in significant air quality improvements, particularly for those at risk of respiratory ailments. According to the health benefits methodology used by Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, this translates to over $500 billion in public health benefits over the last 15 years. For those interested in reducing carbon emissions, the use of natural gas for power generation has resulted in a 46% reduction in carbon emissions since 2005 within the power generation sector. Consider that RGGI would have resulted in a reduction of less than 1/5 of 1% of carbon emissions over an 8-year period. The reductions from natural gas is the equivalent of removing 12.5 million cars from our roadways. From a consumer standpoint, ratepayers saved more than $9 billion in natural gas utility costs in 2024 compared to pre-Marcellus production costs in 2008. And while attention has understandably been focused on rising energy costs, the use of natural gas has resulted in electric generation costs adjusted for inflation to be lower today than they were a decade ago. To be clear, while no modifications of House Bill 1946 would make this legislation acceptable to our stakeholders, I would be remiss if I did not point out several aspects of the text included in the bill. For example, House Bill 1946 purports to have a waiver process under Section 3215A. However, this provision is contradicted by the new addition of subsection B4, which prohibits any waivers of any setback distances. House Bill 1946 also fails to grandfather in existing well pads that were constructed with the intent to drill additional wells at a future date. The expansion of setbacks in Act 13 recognized the environmental benefits of minimizing surface disturbance by allowing these well pads to be filled out. House Bill 1946 does not. And finally, nothing in House Bill 1946 prohibits someone from constructing a home or other building within the well setback distance to then prohibit future wells from being drilled on an existing well pad, even if that well pad had complied with this bill's provisions. In conclusion, I encourage members of this committee and the House of Representatives to reject this legislation. It is offensive to the tens of thousands of men and women who go to work each day committed to safely and responsibly developing our natural gas resources. It is offensive to the men and women of our skilled building trades who we rely on to construct and maintain our critical energy infrastructure. It is offensive to the 280,000 royalty owners across Pennsylvania that wish to enjoy the benefits of their property rights. It is offensive to the 5 million Pennsylvanians who rely on natural gas to heat their homes. And it is offensive to all of us that rely on affordable, domestic, and clean energy resources each and every day of our lives. Thank you for the opportunity to offer these comments.
Okay, thank you for coming today. Yeah, I have a couple of questions. So current law is 500-foot setback from any building, 500-foot setback from hospitals, schools, et cetera, 1,000 feet from water extraction points, and 100 or 300 feet from streams and wetlands. And I think and I will note that Governor Shapiro entered into an agreement with CNX where they agreed to voluntarily extend setbacks 2,500 feet from these vulnerable buildings, schools, hospitals, et cetera, and 600 feet from other buildings. Would you be agreeable to any setback increases from current law, the four we just mentioned? Any increases?
I would note that the current setbacks that we have in Pennsylvania, as noted in my testimony, are the strictest of the 5 top producing natural gas states. We believe that they are sufficient as a matter of law. If operators choose within their own operations to extend those due to the specific nature of their business plan, we certainly support our members in their decisions. But from a public policy perspective, we believe what is in place in law right now in Pennsylvania is sufficient.
Got it. You know, you assert that, I assume, I'm not sure what footages you use to assert that those setbacks would consume high 90% of drillable land, I assume. But was that 2,500 feet?
So to your question, Mr. Chairman, and I do encourage you to look at the white paper that was submitted, which has significant detail. What our operators did was various operators that we represent, utilized their GIS mapping.
But what assumptions did they use with regard to the setbacks?
The setbacks included in the proposed legislation, as well as the setbacks included in the rulemaking petition that you referenced in your opening comments.
Right. Now, do you also have data with regard to setbacks of lesser distances and how that might affect a percent of land usage?
The exercise was in response to the legislation and the petitions.
So but you would concede, of course, that if you lowered the setbacks, the percent of usable land would increase.
Certainly, in the same manner as if you increase them to 10 miles, as we heard, it would even reduce that further.
Okay. And you'll agree that the Act 13 setbacks have no basis in science or medicine?
What I would assert and offer is that you don't protect public health and the environment through setbacks. You protect it through a rigorous environmental oversight regulatory program, which we have in Pennsylvania now.
Yeah.
Setbacks serve as a buffer for a variety of reasons. But if you were to look at the standards in place for constructing wells, for testing water wells, the inspections that occur, the permitting requirements that are in place, that is how you safeguard public health and the environment. And I believe that Pennsylvanians is a standard for this nation. And in fact, many other states have looked to Pennsylvania to learn lessons and adopt very similar provisions that have been successful here, balancing energy development with environmental protection and public health protection.
Yeah, and I will note that Pennsylvania's oil and gas program is woefully short of boots on the ground, as evidenced by testimony of a former DEP secretary who indicated we probably could use well over 100 more people. But okay, they are my questions. Rep. James?
Right.
I'm
Thank you,
sorry.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, wait a minute. We'll follow protocol here. Rep. Rader and then Rep. James? No, Rep. Rader, Rep. Brown, then Rep. Rader, Brown, James.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry, Lee. I have a few questions. If you can answer them, great. If not, just say you can't. That's fine also. For the Cecil Township company, did they receive all the township permits required at the time of their production? Do you know?
I can speak generally, Mr. Chairman. I would like to not speak specific to an operator or
Okay.
a local matter, particularly if it's under litigation.
Okay,
I
didn't know that.
But I would simply say that our operators across the board pursue all required authorizations at the local level, the state level, and at times, if necessary, the federal level.
I would hope they would, and that was my next question, state and federal also.
Yes.
So as long as they're getting those permits, that's what I would like to see happen.
I will note that we have 2 more speakers and about 3 more minutes. So if you could just quickly
I'll
ask
go
a question,
quickly.
quickly give an answer,
If
and
this-
we'll move on.
If this bill were to pass, what's the percentage of land would be usable for drilling in Pennsylvania?
So we looked at this in the manner of what would be prohibited. So if you look at the chart we have in our white paper, you will see certain rural counties in Pennsylvania that have less than 1%. Some of them have 3, 4%. I would underscore our white paper notes as well. Just because certain area is not prohibited does not mean that it is suitable for natural gas development. There are a whole host of other factors.
I'm going to try and go quickly
Sure.
if you can, too.
No, hold on. I want to get to Rep. Brown and then Rep. James, but we're running out of time.
I have some important questions.
Got it. But we all have important questions. Rep.
Well,
Brown.
I'm your chairman.
I
would
understand.
like
Rep.
to-
Brown.
Yeah, I'll yield.
Really quick.
I'll
really
yield, and
quick.
you
Quick
can
question,
have my
quick
slot for the
answer.
question.
Jack, he's yielding to you. Go
Quick,
ahead.
Yeah,
quick question.
Thank you. I'm trying to make this fast, but I think that's important. We had testimony to the other side. I think this is important. Also, trying to make some points here. A lot of investment up front goes in dollars goes in establishing these wells. Do you have any idea what the investment costs would be to do a well? Quickly.
At minimum, $10 million.
Okay. And if this goes through a grandfather clause, where you keep doing business even if it passes, which is normal course of business, is the grandfather clause in this?
The grandfather clause has minimal value. to
Okay.
our
Would anyone want to invest in industry in the future? If they do their investment and something goes through and there's no grandfather clause, I would think that would be normal course of business. That's not included here, I don't believe. Would this basically shut down the natural gas business in Pennsylvania if this went through?
It sends up a sign that says Pennsylvania is not open for business for natural gas.
I have a great concern for electrical production in PA, rising costs of power to the consumers. How would this impact? Would it impact the production of electricity in Pennsylvania?
I think when you look at 60% of our electricity comes from natural gas, and that has allowed us to stabilize the generation costs for ratepayers, saving them billions of dollars, would have an impact.
And that's a concern of mine. I want to protect the consumer. I think we have to protect the residents. We also have to protect consumers in Pennsylvania. And I do think townships have a legal right to enforce their own laws and do what they need. It doesn't have to be a statewide thing. Thank you.
Okay, Rep. James, very quickly.
Very quickly, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe that I've been told that the Marcellus Shale Coalition has an ongoing program of analysis about the primary means of protecting the environment and public health and also witnesses extensive regulations on top of the setback policy. I've also heard, I've been told, that some gas companies are using technology to share data to the public in real time. And that would be to DEP at least. I'm not sure where else. Can you add a little to the information on that regarding the protection for the environment and public health in support of this very critical industry for 13 million Pennsylvanians?
Absolutely. Thank you, thank you, Representative.
Yep.
In addition to the comprehensive regulations in place for the operation and construction of these wells, many of our operators go above and beyond from monitoring data collection driven by science and analysis. As an example, and many operators do this, but as an example, one of the most transparent is the Radical Transparency Initiative of CNX. In real time, you can see the data displayed online to evaluate pre-construction, throughout the construction of the well pad, and then into the production phase. In addition, Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection has a host of air quality monitoring systems across the Commonwealth in proximity to oil and gas operations. They routinely show background and actual emissions below thresholds of cause for concern. So I would encourage the committee to look at that information as well. And I would like to, in closing, there was an assertion that was made, several assertions about one of our member companies. I think that it's the manner in which that was done is inappropriate. But there was an assertion that was made with respect to the University of Pittsburgh study with lymphoma. I would like to actually read you very briefly, Mr. Chairman.
Well, we are out of time on this segment, so
Can I have 30 seconds on this, Mr. Chairman?
we are out of time on this
All right,
segment.
we will follow up with the committee
You can
to
provide
correct the
that.
record on what was presented with the University of Pittsburgh studies, as it was not accurate
Okay.
to the committee. Thank you.
Mr.
Thank
Chairman,
you.
point of order, please.
Yes?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I've often talked about the work that you've done here, and I think it's
Right.
crucial to allow this testifier to finish what he's saying for 30 seconds, and I think it will help you in your pursuit of health for Pennsylvanians. Thank you for allowing me to make this point of order.
I appreciate that. Okay, our next and final presenter is Melissa Ostroff, Pennsylvania Policy and Field Advocate, Earthworks. You can begin when ready.
Thank you for having me today. My name is Melissa Ostroff, and I am the Pennsylvania Policy and Field Advocate with Earthworks. Earthworks' mission is to protect communities and the environment from the adverse impacts of mineral and energy development while promoting sustainable solutions. Earthworks is part of the Protective Buffers PA Coalition, and we are a collaborative effort between frontline residents and environmental groups advocating for greater distances between fracking infrastructure and the places where people live, work, and play. There is no substitute for distance when it comes to protecting people and their health from the impacts of fracking. While Earthworks supports pollution controls to reduce emissions, we know that pollution controls can and do fail. They also cannot completely eliminate exposure to pollution for nearby residents, which is often invisible. We recognize the hundreds of peer-reviewed studies that demonstrate proximity to shale gas extraction is associated with poor health outcomes. As a result, Earthworks supports House Bill 1946 and its goal of increasing setback distances for shale gas wells and infrastructure. In my role at Earthworks, I use my education and my background in public health and optical gas imaging to shine a light on pollution from the oil and gas industry, which again is often invisible. I received my certification as an optical gas imaging thermographer alongside employees from the oil and gas industry through the Infrared Training Center. The EPA defines optical gas imaging, or OGI, as making visible emissions which may otherwise be invisible to the naked eye. OGI was approved as an alternative work practice for oil and gas sector leak detection and repair by the EPA in 2008. OGI cameras are used throughout the oil and gas industry to detect methane and other hydrocarbon emissions. The FLIR GF320 optical gas imaging camera that I used in my role at Earthworks is designed to detect gases that absorb infrared radiation in the range of 3.2 to 3.4 micrometers. The camera's filter only allows infrared energy between these wavelengths to transmit through to the detector. Most hydrocarbons, including methane and volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, like benzene, toluene, ethylbenzene, and xylene, absorb energy near 3.3 micrometers. While the camera cannot quantify emissions or speciate between different types of hydrocarbons, the narrow range of the filter provides indisputable evidence of otherwise invisible hydrocarbon releases from the industry. As a result, OGI cameras are the industry and the regulatory standard for detecting methane and VOCs that are emitted from oil and gas equipment. Earthworks has been using OGI technology for over a decade in multiple states across the country. In my role, I have conducted field work in 23 states, or rather 23 counties across Pennsylvania. The footage Earthworks has captured shows air pollution from unconventional oil and gas equipment and development regularly goes beyond facility fence lines and moves in the direction of nearby homes. While this pollution is not visible to the naked eye, our camera provides visual evidence that communities living in close proximity to well pads and other fracking infrastructure are breathing in pollution from the industry. 2 weeks ago, I was in Washington County, where I conducted field work and filled pollution at 2 well sites that were actively being fracked. On paper, both well pads should be among the cleanest examples of fracking in the state, at least according to how they are marketed to the public and to policymakers. That is because they each were using so-called electrified fracking engines. However, these engines are run using gas turbine generators, and as you will see from the first well pad, slide 1, please. Oh. I did send them to Evan. I don't know if it's possible to pull them up from the email now, or if we have time. Otherwise, I can describe, but it's always helpful to see the visuals. Thank you.
How long do you think it's going to take her to do that?
I think I'll still finish within the 8 minutes. So I have rather shorter testimony.
Well,
but thank you for pulling that up. If you could make it as large as possible for folks to see. But this is the first well pad that I filmed, again, using the optical gas imaging camera. This is the EQT Caton pad in Finleyville in Washington County, Pennsylvania. Again, they were using what is called an electrified fracking engine, but unfortunately, even with an electrified fracking operation, you're still going to have emissions, again, that would be invisible to the naked eye. But because we have this incredible technology, we're able to take a look at a well site like this and actually see the real pollution that's coming from it. And this well pad, as you'll see from the SLR photo that goes through in this GIF play-by-play, there's a house directly next to this well pad. And I spoke to an EQT employee as we were filming, and the employee suggested that it's possible that the person who lives in that house might be receiving royalties from the well. We don't know if that's the case, but I will say when we filmed at a well pad just before this one, we were invited by a resident that lives right next to a very similar well pad to film. He does not receive royalties, but all of his neighbors do, and this EQT employee shared that that's a common challenge that he finds in talking to residents in the area, because not everybody necessarily agrees they want this next to their property. So my question for the legislature is really, would you feel comfortable with your child playing in that yard, seeing the pollution that is emitted, again, from what could be marketed as one of the cleaner facilities? And we can move to the second slide. The second well pad I filmed is part of CNX's so-called radical transparency program. CNX, as has been stated earlier, has made numerous claims stating that its fracking operations pose, quote unquote, no material impact to health and are, quote unquote, inherently good for communities. However, optical gas imaging shows that even one of their radically transparent well pads outfitted with an electrified fracking engine still emits invisible hydrocarbon pollution that can be seen from hundreds of feet away with the right camera. Why are we allowing industrial facilities like this one to be placed directly next to schools and homes? Even though this particular well pad is not next to a home or school, it's a perfect example of what this fracking does look like when placed, with the exact same equipment next to homes and schools, which is what we allow in Pennsylvania. Unconventional gas development cannot happen without significant air pollution, even under what could be marketed or described as the best of circumstances. Pollution from generators, such as those in my videos, is usually not even calculated into permits because the equipment is not stationary. Additionally, fugitive emissions and leaks due to equipment malfunctions are a frequent problem in the oil and gas industry. This is something Earthworks has documented numerous times at well sites across the country. What the optical gas imaging camera makes clear is that this air pollution, whether intentional or accidental, does not care about fence lines. In Pennsylvania, new well pads continue to be built in areas that are already densely developed with fracking infrastructure, leading to cumulative impacts. According to the oil and gas threat map developed by Earthworks and Frac Tracker Alliance, nearly 1.5 million Pennsylvanians already live within a half a mile of active oil and gas production facilities. When we build well pads, compressor stations, and other oil and gas infrastructure next to homes, schools, churches, and parks, Pennsylvania residents continue to be exposed to pollution from this industry. Setback distance requirements must reflect reality by ensuring that industrial facilities such as these are kept at a safe distance from the places where Pennsylvanians, especially children and other vulnerable residents, live, learn, and recreate. A large and growing body of research, much of it originating within Pennsylvania, clearly shows both the acute and the chronic health impacts of living in proximity to oil and gas development. This reality was echoed in the recommendations of Pennsylvania's 43rd statewide grand jury report over 5 years ago. The setbacks proposed in this bill are the minimum necessary to protect the health and safety of all Pennsylvanians, and I urge you to seriously consider this legislation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions? Any questions? I guess you just explained it perfectly.
Okay.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good. So that concludes our testimony. Rep Rader, do you have any closing comments?
I do, for a change. I think when we have public hearings, I think it's important. We're trying to get information. We're trying to decide how we're going to vote on the bill. And I think it's important that we get both sides of the story when we have a public hearing. And I realize the majority has a prerogative. They can do as they wish. But I kind of thought we were shortchanged in what we wanted to testify to and the questions that we had. And I would actually have liked to have heard the answers to some of them, but I felt a little rushed. So I think it's important in the future that we try and get both sides a little bit more, and we allow for questioning that might not be what we want to hear. Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate your comments. I just will note for the record, you were also given last Thursday the opportunity to invite a representative from Labor, which goes beyond what the House rules require us to do. You declined that offer. We in turn reached out to Labor Friday. They were unable to, Rob Baer was unable to testify due to another commitment. So we did make an effort to have both labor and the industry represented. With regard to the opportunity to ask questions, it has been my long practice to be strict with regard to time periods because, and I apply those rules evenly to Democrats and Republicans, adverse speakers and supportive speakers. So I will note that we try to do an even-handed hearing, but because we do have time constraints due to the start of session, it's not fair to the later speakers to exceed the time limits. No. Okay. With that, this hearing is adjourned.